this video, I'm going to show how there can be a spiritual component to ADD or ADHD. Also, I'll show how having a healthy diet or nutrition can also be an important role in treating ADD or ADHD symptoms. So these types of disorders can be shown as someone gets disorganized, they have trouble completing tasks, they go from one task to another without completing it, difficulty following directions or listening to others, or maybe they just interrupt people and can't wait for their turn to talk. So all these factors can help to diagnose one with attention deficit disorder. And the first line treatment, at least from a psychiatric perspective, is stimulants. Adderall, Ritalin, methylphenidate, non-stimulant options such as Wellbutrin. You can look at some of my previous videos for more information about those medications. I would like to take a look at a spiritual perspective for this because psychology or psychiatry, a lot of truths can be answered by these, but it doesn't answer all truths. From a spiritual perspective, if one's work helps them to get closer to God, then it makes sense that the devil is going to try to make somebody get distracted, get disorganized, whatever. The devil's going to do whatever they can to try and make it so that person does not get close to God. Because if they get close to God, they'll bring others to close to God. And it might be God's work that they're doing, and the devil is going to do all they can to try not let that happen. And so that's one way one can look at this as from a spiritual perspective. Dopamine is a molecule that's made by the body, and it's considered to be the reward and pleasure molecule. And again, it has an important role in ADD or ADHD. So for the body to make this molecule effectively, we have to obtain the nutrients from the diet. Tyrosine is an amino acid that can be found in poultry, dairy products, avocado, bananas, certain types of nuts like peanuts, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds. Tyrosine can also be found in poultry products including chicken, fish, turkey. It can also be found in soy products as well. So dopamine is formed in a part of the brain called the midbrain. More specifically, it can be done in the substantia nigra. And so once it's formed here, it can shoot off into different parts of the brain, like the front brain, and go to the prefrontal cortex, where it communicates with the rest of the brain. The prefrontal cortex is important for executive functioning, is planning, organization, synthesizing information. So it's not. So it makes sense that if this is not functioning properly, that can lead one to get distracted easily, to get overwhelmed, feel disorganized, not be able to complete tasks or not be able to finish tasks, and they may also lack self-control as a result, because again, this front part of the brain can communicate to the other parts of the brain, like the emotional center, the memory center, so that one can better able to control some of their impulses. So how do the stimulant medications work? Stimulant medications like Adderall, Ritalin, also known as methylphenidate, they can block the reuptake of dopamine, and so there's more dopamine that will communicate to its receptor, so that through that communication it can signal these neurons and communicate to the rest of the body or brain. So essentially the medications help for the communication of dopamine to its receptor. This also is found in bupropion. As a psychiatrist, I will prescribe stimulants and diagnose ADD or ADHD pretty often. But as from my experience and my understanding, psychiatry and psychology just has some truths to it. But the Holy Bible and the teachings of Christ has all truths. So looking from it from that perspective, there may be a spiritual treatment. I'm going to share with you an excerpt from this book, St. Macarius the Spirit Bearer. And so just a short snippet of his life. St. Macarius was one of the leaders in the monastic community in the 4th century. During that time, he was one of the leaders of the monastery and head of all these other monks. So he's really, really holy, really spiritual. And so he says something in here which made me think that there could be a spiritual component. He says, placing his thoughts in God alone at all times, remaining steadfast in him on every occasion, without distraction and without allowing anything earthly to trouble his heart, neither fleshly thinking nor concerns about his parents, nor conversing with loved ones, nor the consolation of family. Rather, he should maintain his mind and all his faculties as though he were standing before God, that he may fulfill the word of the apostle, in order that the virgin might remain fully steadfast in the Lord without any kind of distraction. So St. Macarius is essentially saying that if you are not fully focused on God, if you're not having all your thoughts, your mind on Him, you're going to get distracted with all this other stuff that's going on in life. And I wonder if that could be why a lot of people get ADD and ADHD. Interestingly, what would support that is I often see people come in for ADD or ADHD when they have more responsibilities in their life, when they've got more demands at home or work or something increases the amount of stuff on their plate. And so from St. Macarius' perspective and the Bible's perspective, maybe that's an important time to maybe delve more into God, whether it's increase more time in prayer or increase more frequency of prayer.
I just want to remind again that the devil is going to do all that they can to try and get people distracted and to do away from God's work, whether it's at work, school, home, relationships with family or friends, all aspects of life. I want to add that most of us are not monks. We don't live in the monastery, but we can learn from what monks and nuns teach us. For example, if we are distracted or not focusing on God, maybe you can spend a little bit more time, whether it's 5 minutes, 5 hours, whatever one can do, to focus more on God. Another source was that if someone gets distracted or cannot concentrate or focus, just read more about that particular topic. And just the act of reading more can help one to focus more.
So I actually wanted to see if this was supported by science. I actually did come across a study that showed that people who went on a week-long spiritual retreat, they did find that there was increased dopamine communication to the receptors, similar to like stimulant medications. Look, I'm a psychiatrist, and so if someone comes to me in the office setting with these types of symptoms, I'm probably going to recommend a medication like a stimulant medication or non-stimulant option. However, I think it's important to really know that there could be other reasons this disease or this disorder can happen in one's life. And just a lot of time as a psychiatrist or psychologist, we're not equipped to look at it in detail from a spiritualist perspective.
So I want to conclude by saying that this illness and illnesses in general are not necessarily a spiritual disease, although there may be a spiritual component in people's lives. Illnesses can happen to any person at any time, but what is important is to use that illness or that circumstance to glorify God in some way. Don't get despair, don't get hopeless, don't get frustrated or angry, but use it in some way to get your soul and your spirit closer to God and the good things in life.
If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe for more content.